So talking of making things better in the world, we're delighted to invite Lauren Seager-Smith, CEO of Kidscape charity, to join us here on the Rebel Book Club stage. Lauren, come on. Oh, there you go. Just like that.
Hello.
Hi, Lauren. Welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me. Such a pleasure.
Oh, well, thanks for joining, especially later on in the evening. But the sun's down now, so that's good. Now, when we came across Kidscape, it was actually Emily who's going to join us in a minute once she's rounded up the rest of the members. Every month we look for an organization that we would like to learn about and support in our own little way, that links to the theme of what we're doing. And so we were, this is book very much about mental health. And of course, there are so many fantastic organizations fighting for better mental health in society. And Emily said, we've got to see if we can support Kidscape. So working with children, fighting bullying and so on. So thank you for joining us tonight, Lauren. And we'd love to hear a little bit, of course, about the organization Kidscape, but perhaps you can tell us how you ended up leading this charity.
Oh, yeah. So it's been quite a journey. I've been in the charity sector for about 20 years, for a long time, pretty much since graduating. That's what I've always done. I've always pretty much worked with children and young people in lots of different guises. I worked full-time in a secondary school in behaviour support, and then worked in education advocacy with Save the Children for children in North London who'd been excluded from school or at risk of exclusion. And actually, a lot of those children had experienced high levels of bullying themselves. And that then led me into the work leading the Anti-Bullying Alliance for many years that coordinate Anti-Bullying Week each November, and then onto that into the role of CEO of Kidscape, where I am now.
And even this week, I mean, for those of us that, unlike you, haven't spent 20 years working on this and fighting this cause, it is becoming increasingly, it seems, at least from where I'm sitting, obvious that the problem of bullying and many other things in schools is, at least we're becoming more aware of it, or the conversation is becoming more mainstream. I mean, even this week we've seen it in the news in the UK. Is that because the problem's getting worse, or is it because more people are waking up to it?
You know what? I think things have their moments, don't they? I think the frustration for us is that we've been having these conversations for a very long time. It's not as if this is new. Children have been telling us for years what they've been experiencing in schools, particularly with sexual harassment. 3 years ago, we were told there'd been, 5,000 sexual assaults in schools. That was 3 years ago. And again, it's come up again now as if this is news. And I think that's the problem. We haven't listened. And actually, within schools in England, there's very little accountability. So we have a very independent school system now. There is no duty to record or report bullying incidents, which means that it's very varied practice from school to school. So the challenge is that some of our children are very safe. They're in fantastic schools that really prioritise pastoral care and well-being, but others are in schools who still have a real culture of denial around bullying. And then alongside that, of course, we've had the growth of social media platforms, which has thrown cyberbullying into the mix.
And we've read a lot about technology at Rebel Book Club, from privacy through to our own, privileged relationship with technology. How much of your work at Kidscape is trying to manage this wave, this tsunami of technology?
Yeah, again, so this started, I think, for us as an anti-bullying sector about 10 years ago with the growth of social media platforms, and it's built. And we've got to the point now where children don't really differentiate between digital life and real life. And in fact, a lot of cyberbullying happens on phones within schools with your peer group, or on buses on phones with your peer group. So there's a lot of blurring between those two spaces, and it makes it very challenging. I think the anonymity of the online world and the loss of empathy, I think it applies to adults as well. And of course, we see that with adults in the online world, has created real challenges actually just for how people treat one another and speak about one another.
And tell us a little bit about the work you do.
Yeah, so Kidscape's been around since the 1980s, and principally we give practical support to children and families who've been impacted by bullying. So we work with thousands of children and young people each year across England and Wales. We run a parent advice line, and we do lots of workshops in schools with children and with staff to create safe communities where bullying behaviour is understood and it's challenged.
And there's so much there, right? How do you decide where to spend your time and money and energy?
God, it's really challenging, and we're a small charity, so thank you so much for donating to us and to all your members. And we're a team of 7 working across England and Wales. And so the way that we seek to work is through collaboration. That's why it's fantastic to be here tonight, is through working with other communities to spread the word about Kidscape, so as many children and families as possible know about us. And our real strategy is around growing our volunteers in different communities who can spread the word and to be on the ground giving that advice to children and families.
And in terms of volunteering, what kind of opportunities or needs are there for people, or needs you have?
Well, as a small charity, we welcome all sorts of skills and attributes. So there are many, many ways that you can help us out, be that with tech skills. We've had people helping us with, on the press side, writing stories for us, gathering case studies, research, business minds, entrepreneurs, and then people that want to get out there on the ground, supporting us with things like delivering assemblies in schools or working alongside our staff to give advice to parents and carers and to children.
And the work you're doing, what works? Where do you see the difference being made and the impact?
Yeah, do you know what I think is really encouraging is that children are so incredibly responsive. And in our ZAP workshops for children who've been impacted by bullying, we teach a range of assertiveness and confidence building skills. And within a really short period of time, we've seen, and we've been running these for about 20 years, a really dramatic difference. So bullying is an imbalance of power. So when you help a child take that power back, they can walk differently into a room. They will no longer put up with those insults. They have a better way of responding to those and managing those. So some of that work is really exciting. And then on a school level, children want to be listened to and they want to engage. So again, if you go into schools and you talk to children about these issues, they do want to engage over it. They do want to change. And when you talk about things like bystanders and how can you stick up for someone else, or what role might you play in a bullying situation, they really relate to it. And again, they're really hungry to learn and hungry for support. And I think that's encouraging. So I would say as well to people on here tonight around sexual harassment, it seems very depressing and like it's a really lost cause, but actually our children and young people, they want to engage with us on this. Girls and boys want to engage on this. They're hungry to be educated, to be properly supported, for schools to create safe spaces and brave spaces where they can have these conversations and be supported to build better relationships with one another. So there's an encouraging story here. You know, Kidscape are very much here to give hope and help, and we would say that you can bring change, and change is really possible.
That's wonderful to hear. And as you were explaining that about how you tackle bullying, it reminded me of we read Invisible Women last year about the gender gap, the data of the gender gap across so many aspects of society, which of course it starts really young for a lot of people. What do you do if you in terms of the bullies themselves? What's your strategy for how you try and stop that person becoming a bully? Is it, is it very obvious? And because obviously we see it later on, don't we, down the line as adults? We see it on social media and in the workplace. But what do you do in the school environment?
Yeah, so firstly, we always talk about the fact that bullying is a behaviour choice, and that actually we're all capable of bullying behaviour. Bullying is very often a group dynamic in which people hold different roles, and you can move in and out of those roles. And actually what research shows is that children with the worst outcomes in adulthood are children who both bully others and are bullied themselves. And so firstly, that's a really important thing for people to understand, that actually it's quite a grey area. And I think all of us, if we reflect back on our time at school, can probably think of times, well, okay, there are most times where I might have been targeted, but actually I might have targeted somebody else, or I might have been, a bystander to an incident where I didn't take action. And so that's the first important thing. And also we're all capable of change as well. And it's really important that, I think we're in a very shaming culture at the current time, and we see a lot of headlines about public figures who we accuse of bullying. And very often there's no coming back from that. And with children and young people, what you have to say is we're all capable of this. We can all make amends, we can all learn, and we can all change. And that's so important that we teach a message of redemption to children and young people, because we all make mistakes. And bullying behaviour is a spectrum from all sorts of behaviours in different ways. And we work from preschool right up to 18-year-olds. So we're actually talking about some real differences depending on ages and stages and the dynamics of the situation.
And final question for me, Lauren. I could talk all night on this subject and learn so much from you, but just for now, is it we've talked a lot about Rebel Book Club about calmness and mindfulness in the workplace. We've even talked about it with children in schools, and of course tonight we're talking about the art of rest. And Alex has told us all to nap more, which is really following children's lead on that habit. But are there any projects or in the work you're doing where you're seeing trying to help children around calmness and potentially getting better at rest in that sense, as a way of tackling this problem?
Yeah, well, bullying has a huge impact on mental health. And so it's so important that children and young people have a variety of strategies they can use to support their emotional health and well-being. So previously, we've worked closely with Susie Redding, and I don't know if those of you are familiar with Susie, who is a yoga meditation teacher and have shared different yoga poses and mindfulness strategies that children can use to help calm themselves down and how to regulate themselves. So absolutely, these strategies within schools can be really helpful just for getting children to a really kind of calm place in which they're able to learn things like kindness and empathy, because they're in a good state to kind of meet with that. So yeah, we'd love to do more around that area as a charity.
No, that's great to hear. And Emily's just reminded me, as we always try and ask everyone, not on your reading list. I don't know if you read much nonfiction, but which book has sort of made a big impact on you?
Oh my goodness, my friends and my colleagues would be really laughing because I'm an absolute nonfiction. I don't know what the word is, but I'm reading constantly. I love nonfiction, and I wondered whether you'd ask me.
You're one of us. That's what you are.
I'm definitely one of you, and I'm definitely going to be joining the community. So I think of what I've read recently, and I read continually, Infinite Game by Simon Sinek has been really powerful for me as a charity leader. I love his philosophy and his philosophy of how we should work with one another. Really important for the charity sector, because sometimes you can get very involved in your own charity and who we are and our brand, and it's not about that. It's about the infinite game of keeping children safe in terms of our work, and we all have a role to play. And the other book is a book on I'm trying to say, I thought I had it near me here, a book on trauma by Bessel von Kirk, and I don't know if any of you are familiar with that, but it's a wonderful book, and that's an area as a charity again we're really wanting to explore further around the impact of bullying on trauma. I could go on and on. There are so many wonderful books.
We can hear and feel the energy for it, so that's great. That's great, Lauren. On the trauma, we read Dr. Gabor Mate in the realm of Hungry Ghosts, where he's working with drug victims over a long period of time as a doctor in Canada, and that was for myself, and I know a lot of people who came across that topic properly for the first time. It was really an awakening experience, and I'm sure an understanding of that's crucial in your world. The other book that just came to mind, Ben, I don't know if you've got any more, thinking about Kidscape and Lauren and her team's work, but was which we've referred to a lot, is a book called Be More Pirate, and the follow-up, which is How to Be More Pirate. Let me see if I can grab it quickly, but here it is. It's got a great cover. You can't miss this cover. But it's basically the business or impact strategy book that will sort of revitalize you. So when you, like you were saying, infinite game, but this one is kind of taking the pirate mindset to not just break the rules, but to bring a lot of fairness to the world in sort of more innovative and creative ways. So and Sam and Alex and the team behind that would love what you're doing, so we can connect you with them if you haven't already.
Yeah, I'm writing it down.
So Lauren, last thing, how can people connect with Kidscape and remind us what part they can play?
Kidscape.org.uk. The best thing you can do is tell all the children and families in your life about us, so that if they're going through a bullying situation or they face one in the future, they know they can turn to Kidscape for help.
Wonderful. Thank you for joining us later in the evening, and we look forward to being part of the club. You sound like this is your tribe when you have time.
I think I found my home. Thank you.
Thanks, Lauren. Take care.